Welcome to the Beautiful Step Podcast,
where we
run,
stomp,
tiptoe,
and tango into the confusing
but beautiful
world of togetherness. We are your hosts, Chris
and Charity.
Now, let's go make our together even better. Yo.
Hey.
I love it. I love it. What? Why are you laughing? What are you laughing about? You don't believe me in the cabin? All right. Yo. I can kick it in a flannel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Part 3, let's go.
Part 3, autonomy is essential.
Yeah.
We were just going to do 2 parts, but then we went too long, so now we're going to make part 3.
It's been so good.
Maybe we're the only ones having fun with it.
I love it. I know it's controversial.
It is?
All that stuff you said about the church and stuff?
But the subject itself about being an independent person.
I was saying stuff about the church as well.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong. I'm not one of these guys who walks around bitter at the church. I'm not. All right? Okay. I'm not. I'm seriously not. The church has done really well by me. I love her. But she's got some problems. And I would say most people would agree with me.
Sure.
You don't think so?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree.
Let's not get into that.
No.
Okay.
Autonomy is essential.
Yeah.
So we're talking about autonomy,
mm-hmm.
ability to be your own person, ability to have agency to act on your own behalf.
Do you know how rad you look right now?
Am I fun?
I love your look.
Oh, thank you. My daughter got this for me.
It's wonderful.
Our daughter, I guess, got this for me.
Your daughter sometimes when she's not being nice. My daughter when she's perfect.
She's always perfect.
All right, go.
Okay.
Go.
Autonomy is essential, part 3.
Okay.
All right. So we ended with, last part 2 was really all about, listening and helping each other kind of, help understand yourself, understand who the other person is, what they're trying to say.
You're dealing with an individual.
Yes.
You're dealing with an individual who has a voice, whether you think they have a voice or not.
Yes.
Right. And let's just get honest about the fact that they can think and they, I'm talking about your partner, whether you're a wife to a husband or husband to a wife or a partner to a wife or whatever.
Yeah.
They are an individual with a voice that you need to respect and you need to listen. And it's probably you that aren't getting it, not them. Hey,
yes.
That's
nice
what I got.
Summary.
Away.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Nice summary.
I got taken away with.
Yeah. So we talked about that and all the different tools to be able to really help you understand each other so that you can nurture the autonomy in the other person. And
because it's biological, it's beautiful, it's powerful, right? And you're never going to escape that in your relationships.
Yeah. And you have a really happy partner when you have a partner that feels like they are in control of their lives.
Yes.
It is what makes them happy.
They're just going for their joy, baby.
Yeah. And when they can't make decisions for their own life, or when they don't have a voice because either they've given up their voice or it's been taken or whatever has happened, they're an unhappy person.
Yeah.
And that's what all the scientific studies prove. So go back to episode 1 to listen to why it's biological that people need their own independence.
And we learned a lot just studying this. It's wonderful. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, oh, I wish I had these tools earlier.
Yeah. So one of the things that we tried to maybe go and end with in the last episode, we decided, we should probably just make that its own podcast.
We got a little bit more time on this one.
Yeah. So I said that I was listening to a podcast and this relationship lady said the thing that people usually don't address because they don't think to address it, but it's the thing that typically will derail a relationship is the idea of what is done together versus what is done apart in a relationship.
Did we fight about this?
Yes.
What?
Well, I think this is the thing. It's like the silent killer. It might as well be like ovarian cancer or something, whereas you don't see the symptoms, but you don't even recognize that that's what you're fighting about. But it comes up in things like, why are you always going off and doing things without me? Or I want to keep money together, but you don't. Or...
I remember. Okay. Time out. Because I remember a time that was really surprising to me one time. I came home from work. I think it was. Yeah, I think I came home from work.
Okay.
And you were so jealous
You got to go
that
to
I
work.
was at work. And I'm like, what is going on with you? You know, and it was like, well, you got to be around human beings that are, you know, able to speak and stuff. And, you know, you didn't have to wipe any of their butts. And like,
Yeah, this
you
is
were
when like
so,
one of our kids was really a baby or
yeah,
something.
you
Yeah.
were just so jealous that I got to go do this thing sort of by myself without you in something that you didn't get to do. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's a iteration of this, right?
Absolutely, right? It's the thing that like this idea of agreement on what is done together and what is done separate, or what things you keep together and what things you keep separate, or who gets to do what away from each other, or what you both feel comfortable doing apart,
Right.
actually comes up a lot in different variations. Like some people might say like it's totally fine if they go and hang out with certain people on their own, and then other spouses would say I feel very uncomfortable with them going to do that. So it's
Right.
the
Right.
it's all these things that end up being kind of the derailers of relationship and creating lots of angst that probably should be addressed. And so we were just going to talk about some things that might come up that you should be talking about, and that you ways that you can kind of negotiate how that plays out.
Yeah, I think there's a couple way. I think there's more than one way to think about this. Obviously, right? I
Right.
mean, there's in one way, it's like for instance, with the when I went to work and you were at home watching Cole or Cole and Noah or
Mhm.
whatever it was, you had this. I know that there was so much inside of you that was like ebbing. You're like, oh, I want to, you know, accomplish these things and you know do all this stuff, and I'm like I feel like I'm just like not being productive because you know you just love to be productive, and so there's that piece of you know what I guess what you were jealous of was that like I was getting this really individual productive time, right? And I was
Yes.
doing this like and it was I see I and I think I maybe have seen this on some sort of sitcom or maybe you did this to me at one point and I'm like this is deep but like I walk in from work, you hand me the kid and you run out the door. You know what I mean? It's like, and I just worked all day, you know, that kind of thing, because there's something really important, right? About having individual time.
Yes. So important. And
And you're not going to get that. I mean, you're just not going to get that when you're raising little babies.
it's really difficult.
Yeah.
But let's talk about that because it is an important thing. And there are certain issues that I feel like people just don't really think to address. Or maybe they have addressed it, but they don't realize like this might be a deal breaker if you don't actually come to agreement about what's okay and what's not
Right.
okay.
Right.
Like for instance, even like if we're just putting everything in the context of like together or apart,
Okay.
or maybe a better way to say it is like closeness or space,
Right.
um, in proximity. So you could say like, is it really, really important that we practice religion together? That might be a couple. That might be a subject that couples
Well,
actually need to,
yeah.
because you could say, and for years we've watched this play out in
Right.
people, right? It's like, well, they said they were, you know, the same religion as me and they believe in God, and then we got married, and I can't figure out why he doesn't want to go to church. Well,
Oh, that's so common. Or can I do another one?
yeah,
Just really quick. So there's that other one of like, well, I'm not really all that serious about any type of faith. I mean, I kind of grew up as a Christian, so I went and you know, I married a, you know,
sure,
whatever,
yeah,
you know, like male stripper. Or just kidding. But well, maybe not. But
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
you have these different sort of, I guess,
definitions.
definitions. You have these different vantage points as you're coming up,
Hmm.
and that stuff changes. And then all of a sudden, you want to get serious about faith or something, and your partner just so happens that they're, you know, either Catholic or Jewish or whatever they may be, and it's like, uh-oh, we can't do this together.
Right. And so even besides like we are of the same belief system, I keep thinking like the stuff that really hits the fan for people is when you actually think that the activity is going to be together and it's not. So you might assume like they're going to go to church if they said they were of a certain religion, the same as me. I'm assuming that means they're going to go to church with me when I go to church.
Wow.
And that might not be what they thought at all.
Right.
So those are the kind of things that actually you do need to figure out. What is our standard here of agreement?
You know, you made me go to church.
Oh, for sure.
Like, you really did make me go to church.
Yes. When we were first married, yeah.
I liked it, but I would have let it go probably
Yeah.
pretty early.
But it was like it had the utmost value to me and very little value to you at the time. And so that's the kind of stuff that you actually have to talk about. Like, are we on the same, like, do we believe that this activity should be done? Like, there's no leeway here. Like, this
Right.
is something we do together.
Right.
You know, some people might be like, we have dinner together and we are always going to have dinner together. And if you're not here for that, then like it's saying something, but it might not be, the person might actually not be saying anything, but in your mind, it says something if they're not showing up to an activity that you think should always be done together.
Wow. Yeah. And I think that in that scenario, right? Like, if you're talking about dinner, oftentimes you don't want to think about it. The first thing that came to my mind when you said that was you don't necessarily want to think about what you're saying by not going to dinner. What you want to think about is what you're saying when you show up.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a big deal.
Yes.
When you show up to dinner, that is important to your spouse.
Because, and hopefully they've articulated why it's important. Because you've had the conversation about why it's important that you show up.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to double down on this. It's like when you are sort of being pushed by your partner to take it down a notch when it comes to go and riding motocross every single night, or when it comes to going and doing this thing, or skipping dinner, or skipping the kids' game, or whatever it may be. I don't know that you should be thinking so much about, I would just say this. I think that you should consider how much it means when you put that thing aside that you really want to go do, or that you want to go do, and you have dinner, or you go to the game, or that's big.
But you would never know that unless you've had the conversation about what it means to the other person that you're part of this activity.
Great point.
And
now
so
you got to start there.
You have to start there. Like, these are the things, I just want to bring up some points that you should actually be talking about. And if you haven't talked about, you might have already thought about, but these are the things like absolutely should be addressed before you get hitched, before you live together, before you really are in a relationship. You should decide which things you think are appropriate together and separate activities.
Right. Can I try something out on you?
Yeah.
And we can cut this out if you want.
Okay.
Or Yusuf can cut it out, our editor guy. But I'll say this. I'm going to try it out on you.
Okay.
So, because I used to give this advice to guys all the time.
Oh, okay.
It's about the whole thing of, when you want to go do something with the boys, right? You're going to get resistance, man. Like, your wife's going to have, you're going to get some resistance. Sorry, but at some point you're going to, like, there's no such thing as the coolest wife ever that just lets you do whatever you want, right? There's this thing where, you're going to be checked. And this is the thing that I think could be possible, right? Here it is there's this thing about women and desire and being desirable. And there's a thing about women where they want to be sort of the only one.
Yeah.
And the only one for sure around amongst other women.
Yeah.
Like, a woman, I believe, wants to feel beautiful. They want to feel desired. They want to feel seen. They want to feel heard. They want to feel like they are at the top of the list when it comes to things that you love.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think what happens is when a woman sees, and this could be way too subversive and deep, whatever, you can dismiss this, but maybe when a woman sees a guy really getting a lot of life out of something that is, like, say, baseball or motocross or whatever the thing is that he's into, there has to be some sort of threat there in a way. And so I'm saying, again, it's very subversive. So I'm saying, and here's the advice that I would give to young guys as I was talking to them. I'm like, listen, man, you have to show your wife that you love her way more than you love motocross. You have to show your wife that you actually, because of course you do.
Right.
Like, of course you love her more. And that was the thing. Like, you love her more than poker, man. Like, you love her way more than any of these other things. Like, you go fishing and all that. Those things are great. But she just needs to see that. Like, she needs to know that. And you need to Not just tell her, I love you, baby, I'm going fishing, but every once in a while, you need to not go fishing.
Right.
Am I off?
No, I think that there's elements of that that are certainly true about, like, especially as, oh, I think I'll put it in, a wife is going to, or a spouse,
Okay.
particularly women, I'll say, and I can only speak for my gender and just my own experience, is going to feel more threatened by things as they feel confined. So if I feel like I'm not getting any of that time or ability to do those things, but you're getting all of that, there's like, it skews. It's not just like a, well, you really like those things that much more, but it's like this, also this unfairness creeps in where, especially when you have little kids, it's usually the mom that gets stuck like at home with the kids when the dad decides he's going to go hang out. And then men do this stupid thing where they're like, oh, she gets time with her girlfriends, they all go take their kids somewhere, and I'm like, hey, yo, independent autonomous activity is not with your children.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that the more free,
like, go be with your girlfriends, and, like, take the kids with you.
Yeah.
Like, that's not me time.
The more free you each become, the more you provide room for each other to have activities that you love, the less you'll find that each other are threatened by those activities, because you're also fulfilled in yourself to where it's not taking anything from you. You're not being robbed, because it either becomes a zero-sum game, like if you win, I'm losing.
Right.
To a, we're both winning. If you get to go out Wednesday night, I get to go out Thursday night. And then I'm not mad that you're going out Wednesday night because I know I'm going out Thursday night. But it's when it gets skewed that I think it gets really contentious.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that there's elements of insecurity, like, anybody can feel like somebody's kind of putting things above them. But for women, it comes up so often because it's way easier for men, especially when they have young children, to like up and leave and go do something than it is for the mom.
Why?
Like, because the men don't step up and say like, I'm going to watch the kids while that's
typically not what a man will do.
Well, I'm just saying that happens less.
Yeah. No, I totally hear what you're saying.
Well, and it might be because the mom is being martyr. She's being a martyr and being like, oh, woe is me, I have to stay, well, you could go do something, but you've decided to like lay your life down and never be that person because somehow that makes you more righteous or whatever.
Ooh.
By, not having fun and not doing things.
Yeah. Right. I got you. Okay. Yeah. I know that coming up and, having guys that counted on me to give them advice, and talk them through stuff. This would come up a lot.
Yeah.
Because most of the guys I know are into stuff.
Oh, yeah. Hobbies. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They're fully into something. And it comes down to, man, I need to actually negotiate here. I need to do some tactical, like, I love my wife, man. I love her. But when it comes to it, she can back off a little right now because I'd like to just go fly a kite or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And they need to.
Yes, we all need to. And so it's good that you're bringing this up right up front. Like, when it comes to activities, it's just simply a matter of negotiation. Like, you really do.
You think it's that easy?
I think it's that easy. Like, if you're both reasonable people, I think you should actually sit down at the table and go like, okay, you're feeling like you want to take on this new sport or whatever you're going to do. I'm feeling like I want to do this. Let's actually figure out how we can be, each getting what we need from this and move forward appropriately.
Okay, let's do this. Let's dig deep. Can you think of a conversation you and I have had where that worked for us? Like when we came to a point where we're like, here's what I'm gonna do, or here's what I need to do, or here's what I would like to do, and we sort of traded off and back. I mean, can you think of anything like that? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
I think for us, it was more like we would negotiate that stuff about work. Like, this is, kind of the schedule that I'm going to keep versus the schedule that you're going to keep.
Right.
Or like, we would want each other to pursue something that we wanted to do, but they were just being understanding about the schedule.
Do you remember the time that you lied to me?
You always say I lied to you about this. When I signed up for Rotary.
Don't, Charity.
Oh, God.
Go ahead and tell the story, Chair.
You were upset at how.
Ah!
No, listen. How you were like this is actually a perfect example.
Yeah.
I was gone a lot doing work stuff, and I've always been a Rotarian in my adult life, and the club had asked me to be the president, and I asked you about it and was like, do you think it's a good year to do that? And you were like, no, I don't think so. That's too much of a time commitment. But then I felt so obligated, I did it anyway, and then told you later that they had made me the president, and you were pissed.
Oh, pissed. So I was like, okay, well, I did. Well, it wasn't. I was hurt. Okay, I was hurt.
No way, you were pissed.
I was hurt. I'm not just so simple. I get angry at everything. I actually have my feelings really hurt. You want me to tell you how the story really went?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so here's how it went. Is you joined Rotary, and I realized you're going to be the president of this thing if you go long enough. And I remember saying, you talking about, like, in one passing conversation at some point, you were like, President, blah, 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 blah. You know, like, it was one of these, like, but as soon as I realized, oh, she said the word president, and it was part of, this Rotary thing, I'm like, oh, she's going to be president of the Rotary thing, and we don't have time for that right now because we just started a business. I'm running a business. We have all these other things happening. And I remember saying to you, I was like, okay, look, promise me one thing, babe, that you won't be president of this darn thing. Please don't be president of this thing because you don't have time. 3 weeks later, you did it.
It's all right.
Horrible.
We lived through it.
But that's the point, right?
Right.
I mean,
yes.
you
have to actually talk about
yeah,
and agree on the things that you each take on. So that together.
And by the way, sometimes you're not. Sometimes like you're not going to agree on things, and you're going to do stuff, and then you just have to forgive each other. I just thought I'd put that in there.
That's right. And we're actually going to do a whole new podcast on forgiveness.
I know forgiveness is next.
But so remember though that when we were first married, I mean, I think there's this other element. Like we're talking about like positive activities.
Yeah.
That, we're not worried about what each other's doing. But remember when you're first married, or even when you're just first in relationship, or maybe one of you is coming from a different past to the other one that the other one doesn't really understand, where you're kind of afraid of them doing things alone. Like you were kind of from this like party past, and I wasn't. That was like a scary concept to me. And so when you would say like, I'm going to go out with my old friends, I would be the whole time so fearful, because if I wasn't with you, then who were you going to be? Well, how were you going to act?
If you weren't with me, I would be, banging heroin in my arm. Like seriously, that was like, you went 0 to 1,000.
Yeah.
I'm like, chair.
Because it was an unknown.
Exactly.
An unknown. So that's what I want to talk about, is like, that's important to discuss, because if you have activities that you want to do, but it's like the other person is uncomfortable with the activity, they're like, it's just an unknown. Like, I don't know the person you're going with, or, like it's scary to me for some reason because I don't understand it, or it's unknown, or maybe you have a history like where they should be a little bit like that has been a trap for you in the past or whatever. Sure. Some women might feel like, well, he's going to be unfaithful because he's been unfaithful in the past. And so what is this thing? So I think it's just important to talk about that and say, okay, let's negotiate on that. And then as we're working up to being really comfortable with what each other does separately, what are some low barriers to entry activities? And by that, I mean like, what are the things that are like really easy wins that we both can feel comfortable with, and kind of work your way up to things that the other person might not feel that comfortable with.
I like that. I think we should go there. But can I just say, like, it's not a backtrack. It's in parallel with what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Here. This whole idea of like, you were scared of things that I was going to go do. And, I didn't really know your life other than like, oh my goodness, you're so sheltered. I have nothing to worry about. Like, it's not, you can go do whatever you want. But I would say, like, don't you think that it is kind of sexy if I'm like, don't worry, I'll be fine.
No.
And they're like, walk out.
No.
Or like, I'm like, you're like, I don't want you to hang out with your friends or whatever. And then I do something like, well, tough shit. I'm a new man. Here I go. You don't think that's sexy?
Okay, let me stare at the camera right now and answer this because he is so far off. I don't even know how to like explain it.
Isn't it sexy?
No,
it's
never.
Sexy.
It's never sexy. Let me just tell you this: women will be the most
impressed by a guy who has an opinion.
Well,
I'm kidding.
That's not an opinion, but I'm just saying, like, if you want a good sex life, if you want a woman who is like responsive and attracted to you and is vulnerable with you, be a safe person. And what you just displayed in that funny illustration is not safe. And so what you'll get is a wife who is guarded and kind of shuts down, and you'll wonder why she isn't fully giving herself to you. And I'll tell you, it's because she doesn't feel like you're safe.
Wow.
And so
that's really good, babe. That's actually super, super insightful.
So she will be the most open with you when she feels like you're going to be really open with her about what you're doing, what you're up to. Your phone's unlocked to her all the time. Then she will feel like she is safe with you, and you will find that you will have a really wonderful lover and wife or spouse or
okay,
partner.
Guys, I need you to look straight at me. I'm going to talk to you right here, okay? This really comes down to good sex or bad sex. All right, guys?
So true.
If you want to have some really vulnerable, beautiful lovemaking in your life, you've got to be a trustworthy, safe person, man. I mean, it's serious. Yeah, am I right?
Absolutely.
It's like you just don't get to be creepy and mysterious.
Nope.
Like you don't get to be, I think that's not if you're in a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, maybe in some one night stand you might.
Oh yeah, that works in a bar. That works great.
But if you want longevity and a good love life, then you need lots of vulnerability, which means lots of safety.
I love it.
Particularly for women. So.
That's just good old fashioned kick-ass advice right there, boo.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Super good.
Yeah.
So if she feels like you are really elsewhere, in mind, heart, deed, any other way, you're not safe.
Can I do one?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's my thing is I'm going to be the ultimate lover and vulnerable if I feel strong.
Ooh.
If I feel respected.
Mm-hmm.
If I feel like I'm on top of the world.
Yeah.
And I think so there's I think that is the interplay, when it comes down to, sex.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Seriously.
Intimacy in general.
Intimacy. Yeah, sort of in general. I mean, we could do a podcast about this, but it really does, if it, as far as our relationship goes, it comes down to, I need to be safe to you. And you need not, emasculate me.
Well, no, and you need to be Seriously. Safe to me, and I need to treat you like you're safe. And treat you like you're respectable.
I love that.
Because when you have both of those things, when you are respectable and when you are treating with respect, then
I have a better way. I have an even better way to say that. I have to be a safe person, mm-hmm. right? And you have to act like you're safe with me.
Yes. That's really
same
good.
Thing, same right? Thing. It's the same thing. I have to be a safe person, right? But if I feel so strong and so good about myself and so right before God and mankind, right, that I'm going to have a certain confidence. I'm going to have a certain beauty. Yes. I'm going to have a certain power.
Yeah.
And you're going to not resist that.
It does. It's
Hashtag
attractive.
My whole life.
Where's your music? Where's your hip hop music right now? No, yeah. It's so true.
Yeah.
Like those things really do interplay, and it's important. And it's important to recognize it, and it's important to talk about it, and it's important to bring them out on the table and say, like, why are these activities either diminishing this?
Yes.
Diminishing this trust in the relationship or this intimacy because we're not talking about what we've agreed on.
Right.
Like, I feel like somehow you're not keeping up your end of the bargain, but we haven't actually made a bargain. We haven't actually decided what are together activities and what are not together activities. And so these are the
And then
things.
even within those, like it would probably be good, especially as you're first starting out, to have that on the radar where it's that right now probably isn't safe at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like me going out to a bar with my old friends when we first got married would not be safe at all. Wouldn't be safe for me.
Right.
You know. So
yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're right. Let's get them on the table and negotiate.
And talk about why you're feeling that way so that the other person understands, like, what is this bringing to you, which is what you were getting at earlier about, like, it's important to know why they need to do those things and what it brings to them.
And I would say to guys, again, like if your wife gets a hint that you desire A, B, or C over her, it can't help but be weird to her and like a threat and like yuck.
Yeah.
Because a woman really does need to feel beautiful, man. She needs to feel like she's the only one. Like it's desired. Yeah. Like that's sort of one of the core things about femininity that I think is wonderful.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, for most,
one of the core things.
Yeah,
by the way.
I would just say it's like it, and again, these are generalizations, so it might not be true for every single person, but in general, I think most women want to be that. They want to be kind of the spotlight of their lover. So,
I mean, I believe in that so much that I would continue to give that advice, and I would also say, try it out on your girlfriend or whatever. Try it, seriously, and see how she responds when you start to treat her like she really is, a queen.
Yeah. So other together and separate things that really need to be addressed are, do you keep your money together? Or do you
remember when we...
Yeah, so we went into marriage with our money shared because
we didn't have any.
Well, we didn't have any. But for some reason, we really thought that it was like the moral thing. For some reason, it was moralized. Like it was the right thing to do if you were married, that you would share money.
Well, you stand up in front of everybody and you tell them, all my worldly goods,
yes,
I give to thee. Like you're actually saying that out loud.
Yeah.
And then for me to walk away from that and be like, well, I got the prenup, so that's part of my worldly goods. You know what I mean? Like, what? So I think honestly it was more of an integrity thing. Well, I can't say that because it's so confusing how it could have been an integrity thing. It was probably more of a construct.
It was just the way we
Christian construct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just, it was that generation.
Generation.
So, but then there was a time in our marriage when we decided to separate our money.
Wasn't that you that decided to separate? You're like, you ain't gonna be on my bank account no more. It wasn't that. It was complicated. We were running multiple businesses and it was just getting too hard and we were fighting about it too much because usually one person spends money differently than the other person or has different, things they value. And so it's okay to decide that that's separate. Yeah. But that should be something that's addressed. Like quit making it either good or bad, moral or immoral, and just decide like what is going to work for you and come to an agreement and a standard on what is together and what is, not together. That's super good. I think, again, it has that same undertone of I am an individual in a really beautiful relationship. By the way, I'm an individual in and this has to work for me and it has to work for you.
Yes.
And, and that's what we came down to. I remember when we separated our finances because it was like, you were like, okay, there's a lot of money coming in from your business and stuff like that, and you're spending a lot of money, and I'm not keeping up with all of this. And I'm like, I got it all worked out, babe. Like, I know how this is working. And then it was like, well, how much of that should I spend and shouldn't spend? And then we kind of just boiled it down to, how about I keep my money over here, and I give you this chunk every month? Yeah, and we just decided that was the way we were going to do it. And let's just work like that for a while. Yeah. Like, it worked really, really well for us. It really actually cured the money fights. And the three things you're going to fight about: sex, kids, and money. And money is a big deal. I mean, it's a deal breaker so often. And so I think that was one of those tactics that we used that really did save us. Yeah, just deciding what's together, what's separate. Mm-hmm. So other things might be like parenting. What things do you consider you have to be in agreement on or you don't have to be in agreement on? Give me one. How you discipline your kids. You should talk about that because that's going to be a really hard one if you're not in agreement about how you're going to do that. But you could have differing opinions, but you need to decide how you're going to go about that. Did we ever we were almost always same page.
Yeah, but we were raised kind of like similarly from that regard. But people come at it from very different perspectives.
Yeah, for sure.
And you have to talk about that.
Yeah.
What is that going to look like?
I want to give one kid thing that we didn't do.
What?
That I think is smart, but most people, or a lot of people, would be like, you're such a jerk. Is I was completely unwilling to count to my child.
You mean like I'm going to count to 1 or 3, but you have to put that down? Yeah.
I honestly, I'm not sure who came up with this tactic. You know what I mean, babe? Because the problem with here's the disconnect for me. The problem is that I really need my kids to know and to trust that I mean what I say.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because I want to control them. It's because I have this overwhelming sense and need to protect my kids, right? And love them and all that stuff. But as a dad, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I know there's a lot of dads out there right now who are like, let's go. Yeah. They're just like, hey, But the thing that for me was I need them to believe me when I talk.
Mm.
I really want them to. And I was, and still am a disciplined person, a good guy. Like I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, not only should you trust me, you can trust me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing anything,
Yeah.
that would cause you to ever,
right.
And so for me, the idea of counting to a child in 3 seconds, I'm going to mean what I say. Like, no, it's like you should be, I always believe this, that you should be able to tell your child something and they should be able to believe it. You should be able to direct your kid and they should be able to they should be able to go, okay, I'm either going to respond or not, like and consequences either way. And so it always confused me when people counted to their kids. Here's the thing about the counting, right? That I think is really important to set up for your kids. Is you can't just be like, I'm not going to count. I'm going to tell them one time. And that's what they should know. No. I remember talking to my kids like, hey, listen, if I say that you're going to be, put in your room, or if I say that you're going to have to go without whatever phone, if I say I'm going to punish you, I'm gonna do it, man. Like it's not going to happen. So it made me really careful with what I would say to my kids.
Wow.
Because I got to follow through. Like the minute I don't follow through, undermines the entire thing.
Yeah.
And so I was like really, really careful with what I would tell my kids. Like, if you do that, you're going to get whatever, fill in the blank. Like there was no idle threats in my house.
Yeah.
It was always a matter of just being like, look, and that's why I'm like, okay, you got to be really careful with what you promise your kids.
Yeah.
This is going to be, and that's why I think with the counting, it totally confused me. Sorry.
I just think it's something you clearly value, right? You really value that you would only have to tell them once. I don't know that I would have thought of it as, I wouldn't have placed it at such high importance probably, but because we talked about it and I understood that was your rationale behind that, then we could come to agreement on that's the way we would do it. We wouldn't count to the kids. We wouldn't warn them multiple times. We would just say, this is your options.
Right.
Do it or not do it, but here's the consequences of those options. And so, but that's something you have to decide together, because if one person's doing something and the other one isn't, then
yeah, dude, you're going to undermine so
absolutely.
That gets so ugly.
Clearly he doesn't like counting with kids, but you might like that. And so if that's something you've agreed upon doing, that's key to do that together. And parenting is one of those things where it's really important that it's done. Either one person has a certain role and you abdicate that to them, or if you're going to do things together, that you're in unison about that, because kids don't do well with mixed messages on that stuff. That's very, very difficult.
Thank you for putting it that way.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So
the autonomy part, the individual part, like what do we We're still talking.
Well, yeah. So what I want to bring it back to is like we talk about these. You're going to find low barriers to entry.
Yes.
And this kind of comes across in every area. So the cool thing is, you know how you somebody tries to sell you something and they're almost always going to give you a free trial.
There's no such thing as a free trial.
Well, but that's always going to be the pitch.
Yeah.
Because
of course.
Once you own something, and this is from that Catalyst book, Jonah Berger, is like, once you own something, you have endowment. It's now of much greater value because you own it. Even if you would never go buy it now, because you've had it, it's valuable. It's like having your favorite shirt. It has more value than like another shirt that somebody else has. This concept of endowment. So
should I show them my sweats? The ones that like,
no.
You're like, your butt is actually showing through those now.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, I'm proud.
But they're a value to you.
I love them.
So you have this concept of endowment.
I own them.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that can be really helpful in negotiating activities or what you do together or what is done separate is that you have trial periods. You say like, hey, you're proposing we do it this way. I'm proposing we do this way. Let's try your way. And we're both going to give it everything we got to try your way. And we're going to have a trial period about it. We're both going to like kind of have that endowment and say like, this is the way we're going to do it. But then we're going to assess and see if that is really the best way for us, or if we should try it a different way, if we should have another trial period.
I love this idea. You know, the thing though, I would say you'd have to have a pretty good basis of trust because, you know, it's real easy for somebody like, okay, well, fine, we'll just try it your way. And then they fully sabotage you.
Yeah.
So you do have to have trust, but I love this idea.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
If you're actually looking for ways to make things work.
Yeah.
Deciding on trial periods, and you could even set it up for a certain amount of time. We're going to try this way that you're proposing. And maybe you could even use language. In fact, I would recommend you use language that it's not like your way, my way, but it's like, this is our first option. We're going to try this for 2 weeks. Our second option is try this for 2 weeks. And then we're going to see which worked better for us for sustainability. So it could be the way you budget, the way you spend money, the way you approach a certain thing, an activity you choose, do trial periods, low barriers to entry.
I love it.
That you can kind of tackle together as you're negotiating what you do together and apart.
Why didn't we do that?
We probably did some things, but really we were so all or nothing extremists that we had a really hard time in doing anything in variables.
And I still do have a hard time sort of asking for help or feeling like my decision won't work out or it's may or may not work out. I'd rather be like, it's going to work. We're doing it.
Yeah. Which is why variations are so cool, because if you posed it like, how convinced are you that this is the right way to do it?
I love
it. And give me a percentage.
Right.
Are you 80% convinced that it's like, would you bet all your money on it? 100% convinced? Or are you 80% convinced? Because even opening it up in percentages like that gives the other person, it opens up options. Okay, you've just admitted that you're only 80% sure about this.
Right.
That means there are other options. It eliminates this whole like, I want it this way and therefore it must be 100% right. Versus, in fact, this is from a book called Thinking in Bets, and we're going to get into a whole series on this, but this is a really cool communication tactic, is to ask each other constantly, like, how actually 100, 0 to 100, are you committed to this being the absolute right thing?
Wow.
And then let's leave it open, because then it lets me, if I've said I'm 80% committed to this being the right answer, then if it doesn't work out, I've already allowed room for that. I already told you that 20% of me is not sure. So it gives me a way to change my mind.
Aha.
But if I say, I am absolutely sure this is the right way to go, I'm 100% convinced, then if it turns out bad, I just have to eat dookie, because I have provided myself no way out. So honestly, when it comes to partnership negotiations, everything should be done in less than 100%, because you want to give yourself a way out and yourself a way to be able to kind of like change your mind, change your heart.
I like it.
And you want the other person to be able to do that too, because if they feel pressed in a corner, if you've said, I'm 100% right. And now it doesn't go right. I'm going to just rub it in your face and be like, you promised that it was going to be 100% right. And now I'm going to hold you to that. And now you have no way of backing out of it. Whereas if you didn't do that, I would have to be like, well, you said, it might not, there was some room there. You weren't 100% sure. I'm going to hold you to it. It all of a sudden, it allows for lots of grace.
I love it. You know what? This is so reminiscent of a conversation that you and I had when I think I was starting a business. I was doing something that was like risky, and I was like, look, I have to do this, babe.
Yeah.
I really have to do this. And I know you're resistant and I love you and I know you're resistant, but this is something I have to do. And I was like, and it may just burn. And you, beautiful you said, if it burns, I'm going to go down in flames with you. And I think that is the kind of like, I'm not sure if this is all going to work out, But man, when you have a partner who's like, I'll do it with you.
Yeah.
I'll go down in flames with you.
Yeah.
There's not much more powerful than that,
Yeah. But do you think that conversation, I remember that conversation.
Yeah.
But do you think it would have been the same if you had said, I'm going to do this with or without you? I'm going to do this because I'm going to do it and I'm not going to admit that it might not work out.
Yeah.
That conversation would have been entirely different.
Yeah.
I would have felt forced. Mm-hmm. And then if it did go south, I would have been really angry. But because you right away said like, I need to try this.
I got to do it.
It might not work out.
Yeah.
It changed the course of the way we approached it.
Yeah. And you were autonomously choosing to go down in flames with me, baby.
Yes. And to take the risk. I was choosing to take the risk. And that's what this kind of negotiation does. Is like, okay, well then let's quit giving each other ammunition to accuse each other of things. You take away that ammunition when you say, we actually decided that we were going to take this risk. We were going to allow this activity. We were going to say that this is what we chose to do together or apart. We made the choice together and we did it like in an actual deliberate effort.
I love it.
And now we don't have ammunition to say to each other, like, you chose this and it wasn't my plan.
Okay. Perfect case in point. Here's another one where I have to be really careful with this when it comes to you. Because you're extremely ambitious. And so if I am like, I'm on board, for instance, just your doctorate that you just got. I remember saying to you, I'm on board. Let's go. Let's do it. You have to do this. Like you have whatever it takes. We're going to do it. You're going to do it. It costs so much money. And it took so much of your time. And I really only griped bad once.
You didn't. I don't even remember that. You were really...
at the end, I was like...
Oh, yes, I remember that.
You're being mean. Like, you're just being a mean person. You're going to be a different person when this is over. And you're just an angry, mean person right now.
Out, yeah.
I'm like, every time I walk in the room, you're like... The sky's falling. Everything's wrong. This is never going to work. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm sick of listening to this. I don't want to walk in the room and get this anymore. Yeah. And that was like, there was one day where we fought. But the whole point was like, I'm going to be with you. Mm-hmm. This is going to be, and we're going to move money around and we're going to move time around. Yeah. And we're going to get you through this.
Yeah.
Right. But we negotiated.
We talked about it and we talked ahead of time about what sacrifices we were willing to make for this goal.
And I would say to any other spouse, choose that really carefully.
Yes.
And then stand by what you said. Like, do not waver. Because that undoes so much, man. When you say go ahead, but then you like are mad at them for actually doing it. You resent.
That's not fair.
That's so off.
Yeah. But we have done that to each other so many times. You don't realize what it entails, or you're just ignorant, or you're just trying to be the nice person. But like let's just have some honesty. Let's just get back to honesty and go like, I don't know that I actually am willing to do this, or I am under these circumstances.
Right.
Those are all the conversations, as much as you do know that you can agree upon or disagree upon and go in accordingly.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is I know that we have, I want to use the word, we have cooperatively quit stuff too.
Yes, absolutely.
Where we've both been like, wait, we had no idea that dance lessons were going to be 3 times a week and cost $1,400. You know, whatever it is. Yeah. Like, no.
Maybe we're not ballroom dancers. Yeah.
Or like, yeah, you stepped on my feet like 4 times. It's not for us. We're out. Like, even though we signed up for a year. Yeah, we've done a lot of that.
Yeah.
Where we know, and that's part of that poker thing. It was like, you have to know when to quit.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think this is kind of what I want to end on, is this idea that sometimes you think that, or maybe in your relationship, you feel like, I'll just put it in my own.
Okay.
Like, I felt like the ambitions should be together. Like,
wait, what do you mean?
Like, I want to go here, and therefore, if you're not wanting to go to the same place or in the same speed or in the same way, that we're not together. And I think what I'm realizing now in life is that, like, it's okay to have ambitions that are different. And just because one person has a certain ambition to do something doesn't mean that the other person needs to have the ambition to do something. You can decide that that's not the goal of the other person, as long as you made that decision together. But I will say that, and this is outside of the marriage context, I grew up in a culture, right, in a religious culture where women kind of played a, you could only be as ambitious as the men around you.
Oh,
you could not be more ambitious or more successful, because that would show them up and that would be ungodly.
Really?
Oh yeah. And so what I think is interesting is, like, now that I've kind of come out of that culture, I'm realizing, like, oh, I myself was oppressing myself because I was always, and the other thing is, I was always waiting for the people around me, which lots of times were people that were really struggling in life and in ways, because I was a pastor, like, I was waiting for them to be able to go at the same speed or pace as me, or want to do the same things, before I would allow myself to move at them.
Dude, that's called a burden. That's insane amount of weight.
It will kill your soul to be waiting for other people to be wanting to do the same thing, or have the same ambition as you, or have the same desires as you. Stop doing that and just acknowledge, I'm a different person. I like to go at a different pace. I have a different capacity. I have these ambitions. That's me. That's who I've been made to be. That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm no longer going to associate what you want to do and your ambition and your capacity and all those other things with what I should be doing with mine. I only answer for mine. I'm not going to answer for yours or yours or yours or yours. And so you do your thing, and that's fine. We can still have a relationship. We can still collaborate. We can still do all those things.
Yeah.
But don't dumb yourself down, and don't, not go somewhere just because the other person isn't feeling the same way, or the other people aren't feeling the same way. You have to have those conversations and say, like, this is what I feel called to do, so I'm going to do this. And unless it's like in direct disagreement, like you actually can't be together if you're each going to do these things. But I think for us, like, we've had lots of conversations where it's like, I need to go do this. Like what you were just saying, like, I need to go do this. And I'm like, okay, I'm not on this. Like, I don't want to go do that same thing, but I'm with you heart and soul. 100%. Like, I'll be 100% supportive of that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we have to be doing the exact same thing all the time together, or have the same desire or same ambition. That's
or have the same capacity.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing I think with me and you over the years is there's a little bit of a trap. And I think we've talked about this on a podcast before,
sure,
but I'll just say it again because I think it's important. Is there's a trap where you have your spouse, partner, going at a certain pace.
Yeah.
Accomplishing a certain amount of things, or
this isn't when your partner a noisy podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea where I finally started to get really comfortable with this. Oh, you know what? I don't have to go that fast right now. You know what? I don't have to do that many things right now. I'm going to do this one thing.
Yes. Because you trying to be at the pace because I just naturally am like, want to take on 10 things.
And I'm like, yuck.
Where you want to take on one thing at a time and do it really, really well, like artistically. And I'm like, no, I'll just be half-assing 10 things. And that's like the way I would prefer to work.
Right.
And so I had to stop intentionally trying to slow myself to your pace or focus on only one thing because I was frustrated, and you had to stop trying to do 10 things because you're like, that's not the way I work either. We both were like frustrated at each other's work process,
right?
But that's all it is a work process. It's again, it's not a good, bad, anything trait. It's just like you have to talk about that and agree.
But here we are 28 years later, and we are still talking about it. Right. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's just, I love it. And I would just encourage couples right now that you can get to the bottom of this. Like you can get a really cool relationship going and keep it and be an individual and be autonomous and love each other and, be fully satisfied and be totally different.
Yes.
And it's just, I honestly know, I mean, it obviously comes down to integrity, it comes down to trust, those kinds of things, but I honestly think that most of it comes down to communication, man.
Yes.
Like, how well are you really talking through stuff? How heard do each of you feel? How in control of your life and are your choices and the outcomes of those choices something that you're, dictating, or in control of, because that is biologically going to work.
Yes.
And it's biologically not going to work if you have any indenturedness.
Yes, that's a great word.
Or you have any abdicate, like you just feel like you have to abdicate all of your.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, the antithesis to that word that you're saying the other day, learned helplessness.
Yeah.
Where you go, look, because that's kind of the road you were going down when you were doing less and less and less because you were trying to get people on, or you were trying to maybe mirror the people around you. You're trying to get them on board so that you could be ambitious. It's this whole thing of like, man, it seems like this crowd is teaching me how to be helpless and a victim more than it is actually getting me really strong.
Yeah, that concept,
is that right? I mean,
that concept of learned helplessness, and we talk about it in the first podcast, but it's under the term learned optimism, but it's the same author, same book, but the concept is that when people don't have the ability to choose their life, choose their outcomes, when they don't get that, they will naturally just not even try anymore. It will just be like, I didn't get a choice. Well, then I will go immediately to despair and stop trying. Yeah. And so even in our own lives, and you were exactly right. Like I was getting to the point where I felt like I was having to purposefully hold the brake all the time in my life for my own ambitions and my own things that I wanted.
Right.
That I finally was just like, why am I even in the car? I'm not able to actually do anything I want to do because I'm waiting for everyone around me to like want to do the same thing, which was just such a trap in my mind.
Oh,
so
bad.
It became learned helplessness, and it leads to despair. It leads to depression. And so stop doing that.
Yeah. And there's the thing, I think there's this, just the word despair and learned helplessness. I mean, I believe are the same thing, it starts with that disillusionment and it goes into this, I'm really discouraged at this point. And then once it hits a point of despair, that's tough, man. Yeah. That's actually really a scary spot when people get to a place where they're despairing of their own existence or something, or their own ambition, where they've just completely given up.
Because they feel like they cannot change things.
Right.
They're stuck.
And they've been sort of learned.
Yeah.
They've been taught
to be stuck.
Yeah. Like this system, these people, this world, this school, whatever it is.
Yeah, I can't do this because it'll, like all of a sudden, like I'm now a victim to everything else.
Right.
But you can help each other out of that by really just making sure that each other has autonomy. And so that the tools in these 3 podcasts are like, use them to cultivate strength in each other, to cultivate that autonomy, realize how important it is, realize it's biological, realize like if you actually want a happy partner, have an autonomous partner. Forget they're not the other side of you. They're their own person.
Love it.
And like you were saying, like value the person more than anything else. And when you really do value the person more than anything else, you're really eager to help them become strong, autonomous people.
I love that. Yeah. And I would just say in closing as well that you're more powerful than you think.
Yeah.
I think people are going to surprise themselves.
Yes.
And I honestly believe like that. And this isn't just preaching. It's true that your best days are yet to come.
Yeah.
Really. The more honest you get with yourself, the more wise, the older, like the more experience, the more you apply yourself, the more you really risk, being vulnerable with your partner and loving and like not trapping yourself in some cocoon and playing it safe, but like getting out there and going down in flames together, man. Like that kind of stuff is what I truly believe life is all about.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful when it's biological. And when you get to keep flipping the page, you know what I mean? And keep making those decisions where it's like, that's a really beautiful thing. And your partner's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
They're just going for their joy. And then they're on the ride. They're discovering all this, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is, I'm so glad that you and I are in that spot right now where we're able to really respect each other and really listen to each other and, and give each other space.
Yeah. So dig deep, have those really honest conversations, negotiate. It's okay to negotiate. I like that. Communicate. It's okay to speak up.
Yeah, I love it.
And you'll be happier people and you'll have a happier relationship.
I love you, baby.
Love you.
Wait, babe, wait. How do we end this?
By saying thank you.
Okay, you guys are awesome. Thank you. There's nothing more encouraging than you hitting that like button and commenting.
And don't forget to subscribe.
And I know there's more. You have a list. Might as well go down the list.
Right. Okay. Watch the video of this podcast on our Beautiful Steph YouTube channel or on our website where you can actually download transcripts and show notes of the episode. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
If today's episode made your together even better, tell someone.
Okay, now.
Right now.
Today.
Okay.
You can take one step.
It's just one step.
Toward the beautiful relationship you want in your life.
You got this.